Hi everyone, it's Dare from Dare Cinema, and in this episode we're going to finish off talking about short films. Now, if you remember, in the last episode I talked about the 7 stages that any film goes through, and this is concept, resources, writing, pre-production, shoot production, post-production, and distribution. In this episode we're going to talk a bit about post-production and distribution. Now, what is post-production? A lot of people just sort of think, oh, it's what happens after you finish the movie. Well, yes, that is sort of generally correct, but there is also the aspect of that nowadays, as complicated as movies are getting, sometimes post-production starts even before shooting. You know, the visual effects and the CG needs to put together kind of a basic look of how it's going to go so the director and the crew on set know how to shoot the elements that are going to go into the actual film. So post-production isn't necessarily everything that happens after shooting, but it is generally the following categories. You have editing, you have sound editing and ADR, which stands for audio dialogue replacement, Foley, sound effects, sound design, music, visual effects, computer graphics, motion graphics, mixing, color correction, and mastering. Editing. We all know what editing is. It's when you're using Premiere Pro, Sony Vegas, Final Cut Pro, Avid, Windows Movie Maker, whatever it is that you're using to put your film together. The editing process is just taking your clips and assembling them into a story that an audience can see. Sound editing and ADR, or audio dialogue replacement. This is simply when sound editors, and maybe this is you on a shorter project, go in and take the sound files that were recorded, the actors' lines, usually ambience as well, and they edit it together to get rid of unwanted noise, unwanted distractions, and make sure that it sounds good. Now, if you have places where the dialogue just did not sound good on set, you need to get your actors back in and you need to record those lines again, and then you need to put them in the edit, and the sound editor, or you, need to match that re-recording, the ADR, as best as they can to the lips of the actor in the performance. Do whatever it takes to get the best sound on set as possible. Don't think that you can just fix it afterwards, because the audience will notice bad sound before they will bad visuals. Sound effects, sound design, and Foley. Foley generally refers to this activity of when you're creating sound effects like with real-world physical objects. Like if you see a person walking towards the door, there's a studio where they have a bunch of different types of floors and different types of shoes, and they'll actually create those footsteps and match it to what's happening on the camera. The squeaky door hinge, dropping something on the ground. This is mostly done in a Foley studio. Okay, you also have sound design for sound effects that might not naturally exist. Laser guns, the battle cruisers in Star Wars, lightsabers. This is generally considered sound design. As well, there's also ambience that sort of gets created, whether you've got your chirping insects out in the desert or the wind whooshing through the trees. Sometimes this is also done in the sound design stage. Next, music. Okay, we all know what music is. Now, when you're doing short films and you have no money, it can be a little bit difficult if you don't have a friend who's a composer to get good music. But there are some resources out there, like for Ready to Kill, 9 Inch Nails, as an example, they released their Ghost soundtrack as a Creative Commons attribution, meaning that you can use it in your shorts as long as they're not making money, such as short films, student projects, etc., and as long as you just credit them in your credits. Moby also has a ton of great music that students and independent filmmakers can use for varying different levels of projects. And you can go to his website, I think it's called movygratis.com or something like that. But also there are now stock music and royalty-free websites that are coming out that will license music to you based on the budget of your production. And it actually makes pretty good music, and in some cases really good music, affordable to artists at the low budget, no budget stage. So just search around and just look through the different websites there are and see which one has what you like. This can take some time because the truth is, unless you've got a composer who's making the perfect music for you, you kind of have to go find it. And you can't just rip a song off of your favorite soundtrack without it getting flagged, and it won't get into festivals unless you've gotten a release from the record company, which can take some time. So if there's just a song that you have to go online, you have to research, who owns the publishing rights, who owns the licensing rights. You have to email them, explain your situation to them, and then hope that they will give you the rights to that song. So if you're going to do that, just make sure you have a backup plan with stock music as well. Next, visual effects, computer graphics, motion graphics. These are basically computer-generated effects for the most part. They include smoke, fire, flood, water like rain, fog, clouds, tornadoes. Those are generally considered visual effects. Then you also have computer-generated graphics like, big fighting robots and stuff like that. And then you have motion graphics, which tend to be your little squishies that fly on the screen and animated parts of commercials and stuff like that. Now, all of this can take a lot of time to do. I used to work in a visual effects company, and it always amazed me on smaller productions how the director or the producer would kind of come in at the last second hoping for a miracle. And we can deal with that, and visual effects artists are used to dealing with that, but it's so much better if you start the dialogue at the beginning of the process and make sure the artists know your schedule and are tracking so that they can not only help you make a miracle, but they can, which usually it's already a miracle, getting you great visual effects and computer graphics at low budgets. So the way to really make that possible is to give those artists as much time as possible to get you a great looking shot. So just be thinking with that. Okay, mixing. What's going to happen here is the mixer is going to get all the sound files for the movie, the dialogue, the ambience, the music, the sound effects, everything. They're going to bring it into a mix bay, and they're going to make sure everything sounds good. They're going to sweeten up the voices. They're going to make sure the music isn't too loud or too quiet. They're going to make sure the sound effects aren't too loud or too quiet. They're going to get everything put on the speakers where it belongs so you have a good surround sound if you're doing a surround sound mix. And at the end of the day, their job is to make it sound great. Now, generally, when you have no budget, low budget, it's kind of rough for a mixer to rent a studio because generally they're pretty expensive unless they own their own studio. So just realize that if you're approaching a mixer to help you on a film project, that they might have to work out of a smaller home studio that may not have the big theatrical production, but they still can make it sound great with the tools that they have in their home studios. But look, don't be discouraged, okay? Everybody in the film industry is generally trying to help everybody else out. So even if you have no money or very little money, reach out to a mixer, see if they can help you for credits, for back-end participation, whatever it may be. But try to get a mix on your film. Even if it's just from a small home theater, try to get a mix. It will definitely help elevate the quality of sound that you have on your short. The color correction pass. You know what this is. You load your finished edit into Resolve, SpeedGrade, or even directly inside of Premiere Pro or Final Cut. And you take it, you balance out all your shots so that the whites look good, so that each shot matches one to the next, and then you go through it and you add color stylization to it to achieve unique looks for your movie. Now, this is actually a fairly recent development in cinema, and the amount of control that you now have over your image is staggering. And a great color correction artist will show you many different looks and just ways to bring out the best in your footage. So definitely take advantage of the color correction phase, and I'll show you a little bit on Ready to Kill how we used Film Convert to sort of give some unique looks and film grains that was amazingly easy and turned out great. Mastering. Okay, you've now got your final sound files, you've got your final visual color corrected master edit, and you now need to get this ready for distribution. Now, this may be as simple as just exporting out of Premiere for Vimeo or YouTube, or it might be if you're going to project it in theaters, you might need something called a DCP, which is a digital cinema package. Now, there are plugins for Adobe Premiere that work, and there's more expensive software out there. If you don't know what you're doing, just find someone who can get it turned into a DCP for you. They can be expensive, but if you shop around, there are cheaper places that can get this done relatively inexpensively and pretty quick too. So make sure that you're mastering it for correct distribution. All right, that's post-production, which brings us to the final phase of a film, which is distribution. Now, for short films, you really only have a couple options, which is one, you're going to self-distribute via Vimeo, YouTube, Facebook, and other video sharing platforms, or you're going to get it sent to festivals. Now, if you're going to do the festival approach, I suggest you use a website similar to Without a Box. That's what I use. It makes it very easy to submit to almost any festival in the world, and that's withoutabox.com. Check it out, really simple. However, there's a caveat on this. Film festival submissions can get expensive. So unless you're just independently wealthy, really think carefully about what festivals you really want to submit to. And if this is your first film out of the block and maybe you see that it's got a lot of rough edges on it, try some local festivals first, and then as your work improves, start going to the bigger and bigger festivals. Realize the more prestigious and the larger the festival, the tougher the judges are and the tougher the competition is. So you may very well have the next Academy Award-winning short film, in which case, by all means, send it to the big Academy qualifying festivals. But until you're at that stage, stick with your local festivals, go through that process, get the feedback from people, or just send it up on YouTube or Vimeo and share it on social media and to as many people as possible. You will get feedback. Some of it will be nice, some of it will be harsh. Just take both, ignore the trolls, and learn from the experience to make your next project better and better. Okay, so I've now covered all 7 stages of the film process: concept, resources, pre-production, writing, shoot production, post-production, and distribution. I briefly just wanted to touch upon some of the things in the editing of Ready to Kill, and the color correction is sort of like a final sort of statement on this, and then that'll be it for this series. Now on the editing, when you're editing short films and other experimental work, take the time to have some fun with it. Set some realistic goals in terms of things that you want to try, because you can do on a shorter, low budget, no budget production that you might not get away with on a larger budget production, but it will give you the confidence to try new things in those other productions. For example, on Ready to Kill, most of the features that I worked on and other shorts that I'd done always started with the traditional wide establishment shot going in closer and closer on the scene. And I thought it would be kind of interesting to sort of reveal these characters coming from their close-ups, extreme close-ups, and then going out to the wider shots in the scene. It was just something I wanted to try, and I felt it worked really well. So this was something that I enjoyed trying. And the only other thing I want to just say again about the editing process is that it is a process. You may get discouraged. You may not want to continue because you don't think it's good enough. Finish the edit. Don't let it die on your hard drive. There is something there to be proud of. Even if it was just a learning process, okay? No matter what anybody else says, finish the edit, get it done, look at it, show it to friends as a bare minimum, then learn from it and move on. Okay, let's take 30 seconds to just talk a little bit about Film Convert. Film Convert is a standalone software and a plugin for Adobe Premiere and I think also After Effects that allows you to simulate film grains and other film looks very rapidly. Inside of Film Convert, you basically can you select the camera that you shot it on, you pick a basic LUT that you want to use to do on top of it, and then you can sort of dial in the settings to get whatever the look is that you want, including tweaking film grain, tweaking saturation, and stuff like this. You can get some great looks really fast, and I highly recommend experimenting with this great piece of film software if you want to actually create filmic looks. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the episode. And I'm sorry if it was a little long. I just wanted to make sure that for first-time filmmakers, you knew all the checkpoints that you kind of, in the little boxes you had to check off when taking a film from start to finish, especially short films, because, you know, until you've done a few of these, it can sort of be a bit of which way do I go next? Okay? Go ahead and check out my website for the blog article on this. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my courses. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. I'm going to start talking about the C300 Mark II and how to get the most out of this camera. All right, catch you next time.